Now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
This is your RBLR Rays podcast. I'm your host, Zach Dobb, along with my co-host, Pat Davenport. Pat, what's going on?
I'm doing well. I'm doing good. I'm having a lovely week in the sun. It's finally showing itself here in the UK. I'm feeling some sun rays. And I've been watching some sea rays. Is that what we call them?
Yeah.
I think officially now, we should probably know this as Rays podcasters, but the rays are officially rays of sunlight, not the fish ones anymore.
Yes, because they always, like, especially in the mid 2015, like 2015, 2018, 2020, there's a lot more of the sunburst ray. They've kind of gone away from that because they'd realized the devil ray is more popular and it looks better. But the sunburst was like and I think that is still technically what the rays are, is the sun ray. But then you do have the ray aspect of like the history of the team. So like I think if you were to look at the bylaws of the Rays, if those exist somewhere, it would say sun ray. But like it's the ray of the ocean is in spirit.
Yeah, I'm feeling now we should I know we've already got like a million logos now because we've got the Sun Ray and the Devil Ray and Evan Longoria and all the other things. But why don't we have like a Sun Ray, like a flappy ray that's like powered by the energy of the sun?
Like a solar ray, maybe?
Solar Ray. I mean, that's when we do our new alternatives. And when the current City Connect expire, we then roll it back and we do the sun ray to match the sky ray. We're forming the elements, people.
Yes.
That's what we're doing.
And are there any MLB teams that have more logos than the Rays right now?
Ooh, I don't know,
Because I don't think like the Orioles have a couple.
Yeah, the Cubs have a couple. The Padres, maybe?
Padres have a few.
Because they got the little monk swinging the bat.
Yeah.
The Tigers.
I think, I mean, honestly, I think the Rays, if you were to just go like pound for pound, most logos, I think the Rays are there right now. I don't know if there's a whole lot of teams that have more logos.
And they all slap as well. They're all absolute bangers.
Yeah. So that was your logo talk for the week. We're going to give you some Rays talk as well while you're here. Thanks to you for being here. We appreciate you all joining us here today. If you are joining us for the first time, thank you for doing so. Just keep watching and hopefully you enjoy. If you're coming and joining us back again, we thank you for coming, and just do us a favor and subscribe. If you've already watched us a couple times, you like what you see, subscribe so you know when it's coming around again. Follow us on all the socials at RBLR Rays and RBLR Sports as well to get all of the various RBLR branches in there, and so even the new ones that are coming along. And make sure you're following us there so you know when we're going live, when we're putting out new podcasts. We're always going to have cool stuff for you to see on the socials. Today, we have got some Rays baseball to talk about. It's been kind of an odd week, a perfectly 500 week of baseball since we last spoke. Kind of a weird stretch that we're in right now. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what the expectations are for this team going forward, which feels like we've been talking about that every week. We're going to keep talking about it, and we're going to talk about what if there are changes that need to be made, what might those look like. So we're going to talk about it. But as we get into that, we're going to look back at the week that was, starting with the end of the Royals series.
Yeah, so last time we talked, I had to do a solo show, and it was coming off an L6, so it was a hard time to be talking about the Rays. But luckily, the Rays got a much-needed win in the finale of that series, 4-1. It was a pretty tightly fought affair for most of it, and ended up being a big rally in the 7th inning for 4 runs. Brandon Lau, the big pinch hit opportunity, coming through with the goods, and then the bullpen kind of locked it down from there. And it was a much needed win to kind of stop the skid.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I liked the most about that win was, of the 4 innings the bullpen pitched, 1 earned run given up, 1 walk. And that's kind of what we're looking for from the Rays bullpen. One of the things we talked about at the beginning of the season, as we were having our first run of like kind of poor play, was the most uncharacteristic thing we saw from the Rays pitching staff was the walks. It was something we talked about repeatedly as a huge issue. And that is one of the things that, as we look for what are the signs of this team starting to get back to normal, that is one of the things that we've actually started to see a little bit over the last month. The Rays rank 5th in MLB in the lowest walk per nine for their pitching staff with a 2.58. That is way more in line with what we expect from the Rays bullpen and from the Rays pitching staff as a whole. And that is what we've gotten over the last month. So to me, if you're starting to look for, and I've joked around on Twitter and joked that this win was the turning point, and then also the walk-off wins were the turning point of the season. So we've got some potential turning points out there. But if we look for what are the hallmarks of this team turning around, one of them is cutting back down on the walks, and we've started to see that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's so good to see the bullpen look more like a Rays bullpen again. We kind of said this was going to happen, though. The bullpens are volatile by nature, and the fact that they were going through a struggle was definitely going to happen. It was like this last year as well. And the fact that they pulled it together is great because it's nice to have that kind of area kind of blocked off as like, right, we know what we've got going on with the bullpen. We don't really need to worry about that. I think there's no more of a stressful watch experience than having to consistently watch a team that has a genuinely bad bullpen. I think that's one of the worst watch experiences you possibly have. I remember when the Phillies had like a good lineup but like an awful bullpen and terrible defense, and I think that might be like the worst brand of baseball for me personally that I could possibly watch. So the Rays bringing that lockdown bullpen is really reassuring, knowing we can go to Clevenger or to Fairbanks or Adam and just be like, right, those guys are going to lock up the innings for us at the back end is really reassuring.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to say about the World Series before we keep moving?
I think what I would say I will apply to the A's series as well. So let's go to the A's series.
Cool. So A series was a series win, which is great to see. 2 walk-off wins. Started off the series with kind of a unfortunate loss where the Rays did not give up an earned run. Well, I guess they've changed the scoring decision on that. They've gone back and I just noticed this now. Originally, Littell was not charged with the 3 runs because there was an error that allowed the inning to continue. So the run charges earned, but now they've gone back and changed the scoring decision, which I do not agree with, by the way. This is something that's been talked about a little bit on like just generally in baseball. I feel like they are going back and changing scoring decisions more frequently than they have in the past. And maybe this is just completely I totally disagree with that scoring decision. I guess never mind, my point's wrong. They gave up 3 earned runs, apparently. But Littell went 7 innings strong and gave up 3 earned runs, which even if he did give up 3 earned runs, whatever, he pitched very well. But the offense just kind of couldn't get anything going and lost nothing to 3.
Yeah, a tough one. I think if I was scoring it, I'd give him 1 earned run.
On the home run? Maybe.
Yeah, just because he did give up the home run.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's impossible to get errors these days in MLB. There's like no errors anymore. That's like the dying thing. Is like scorers now just always rule on the side of the field. They're going, it was a tough play.
Which I just don't think is fair. Like you have to be like, and especially the play that was miffed, like that's a play you need to make. Unfortunately, it's a play that should have been made.
So get it together, official scorer of the Tampa Bay Rays.
I guess is the official scores, do they work for the Rays or is it for MLB? Like, how does that work?
I think they're per, like they work for the team. I think they like per stadium, each one has an official scorer.
So maybe this. So I guess the question is there an agenda by the Rays official scorer against Zach Littell?
There was like a moral dilemma for him. I don't know if it was against Zach Littell, but he was like, do I put the error on the fielder and make the fielder look bad, or do I put the earned runs on the pitcher and make the pitcher look worse? That's the moral dilemma. Who do I like more, the pitcher or the fielder? And it looks like Zach Littell's done something nasty to the scorer.
I guess so. It's unfortunate. Well, we then did some unfortunately nasty things, if you're an A's fan, to the A's over the next 2 days, walking it off 2 games in a row in very dramatic fashion in the first game, especially because Jose Siri decided that he was going to take that game himself.
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh. The poster, it was like Michael Jordan dunking on someone, but the MLB equivalent where he was robbing a home run and Randy was right there in his face. And despite Randy being right in his face, Siri made this amazing catch, robbing a home run. And then, of course, coming up in the bottom of the ninth and immediately sending us home, calling game. What a swing. What a swing in momentum that was. Almost giving up a go-ahead home run to ending up taking the dub. Wow. Jose Siri, that is why we call him El Rayo, because that was absolute electricity on both sides of the ball. And that, when at his best, is what Jose Siri can be.
Yeah, and if we can get that kind of Jose Siri, we're going to be in really good shape. And this also goes back to something I said on Twitter, which is all you people out there who call for Jose Siri to be benched and to be sent down or to be traded. I'm waiting on your apologies. Anytime now, my DMs are open. Feel free to apologize. I left the form there on Twitter. It's there on my profile. Just go and find it to fill it out to Jose Siri, because this is what he's always been capable of. And he was in a slump, sure, but this is. You do not put a guy that has the ability to take over a game on his own and alter the outcome on his own defensively and offensively. You just don't put a guy like that on the bench. That's at least not long term, because there just aren't that many guys that can do that. And he's at the premium position. I think that's why we often value shortstop and center field so highly. It's because it's one of the few positions in baseball that you can actually affect the outcome defensively and offensively if you are good enough. And while Jose Siri may not consistently affect the game offensively, he is going to very consistently affect the game defensively. And that's what we saw. And we saw even more offensive affecting of the game the next day, where Jose Siri had another breakout offensive performance that ended up in another win.
Would you go so far to say as it was Jose Siri's night?
Oh, 100%. I think it is Jose Siri's 2 days.
Because there was an unfortunate moment. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter involving the A's announcer, where apparently it was not Jose Siri's night.
But it was weird because it was in the afternoon and he'd already hit a home run that day. So it's why are we? And I mean,
also overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. You don't call game until the game is over.
And I mean, the location and the velocity on that pitch that he hit out was, that is about as tough a spot as you can possibly think of.
The only thing I can imagine is Jose Siri was like, I'm going to guess it's a fastball on the low inside corner and just swing out my shoes and hope for the best. And that's where it was. Exactly. And then, oh my gosh, I still watch back the moment where he hits it, flips the bat, claps his hands in the batter's box for a minute. Oh, it pumps me up. I feel like Jose Siri is very much a vibes-based player. And if the vibes are off, he will be off. But if the vibes are good, he will be top 10 player in baseball. And the vibes were on for Jose Siri in that series.
Very on.
Siri in that series, and it was that's hard to say, and he again took over that whole series and really kind of put the team on his back for that win.
And again, we had another really, really good performance from the bullpen in a 12-inning affair, which is difficult to hold the line.
Don't get many of them
long.
nowadays.
You really don't. And again, in 12 innings of baseball, Ray's pitching walked 2 guys. I'm going to keep harping on this because I think it's really important, because it's a sign of things moving in the right direction from the pitching staff. Because even though we're still giving up hard contact, and that's really unfortunate, and we want to limit that, the more that we prevent people from being on the bases, the more that we're going to put ourselves in position to succeed going forward as the stuff starts to improve. Because the Rays are still on the top of baseball if you look at Stuff Plus, which isn't the end-all be-all, but they are still on top of baseball when it comes to the pitching staff. So I do believe the locations will get better as the season goes on. The key thing is to not have guys on base, so when you make mistakes, that it hurts more. And the Rays have done a much better job over the past month of mitigating that. And I think as we see that continue as we go forward, that's going to start to be one of the hallmarks of seeing this team turned around.
I couldn't agree more. I've already noticed that Richard Lovelady, he only got acquired a week or week and a half ago. He's already got 5 decisions, which I know doesn't speak for very much, but he's already 1-4. He's already got 5 decisions as a pitcher. So he's getting thrown out there in big opportunities, which I think is something that's indicative of how they perceive him going forward as well.
I think it's also really indicative of the Rays' philosophy as a team,
That's
because
true.
I think we've seen this with how much they used Rortvet earlier in the season, and maybe you could even say with Jackson too. They understand that for you to be able to perform in the highest moments when it's the most important later in the season, you have to be put in the situations that are going to test your ability early on, so you have that metal in you. So they are generally speaking gonna put you in situations where you're gonna have to perform. They're gonna put you out there. They're gonna make you do it at the major league level, because they know the only way for you to get better is to be put in those situations. If you're a major league talent, like there's a certain level of like you're a major league talent. Once you get there, then they're going to start putting you into those situations so that you can be tested, because that's the only way you're going to be ready to handle the end of the season stress, the playoffs, etc. So they are not afraid to put players in those situations, even if it may not be like necessarily what one may think is the best decision to win a game per se, although I think the Rays would still argue that they think they're making the right decisions. But there's also that aspect of, I want to win today, but I also want to win in October. So you're going to put your players in position so they can get the experience necessary to draw on when they get to October and when they get to September.
Yeah, and the Rays, for all the stick that they get for being overly analytical, I think they're a really emotionally intelligent organization as well, for the most part. And it's those measuring of the intangibles, like you said, of one, testing to see what they're capable of, but two, also you've just turned up, you've been DFA'd, and you've, in Lovelady's case, he's bounced around a few teams already this season, and he's bounced around. Confidence is going to be low because he hasn't been able to stick. And they're like, hey, we're going to use you. We believe in your ability. We're going to use you in big spots because we trust you and your stuff. That's why we went out and got you. And that confidence is such a big thing in pitching. The ability to believe in what you throw, because that's how you're going to throw it over the zone and not nibble around, and buy into that philosophy. And the fact that they're saying, come in here, throw your stuff. We know it's good. That's going to help in the long term as well.
Yeah. And I think that while it can be frustrating sometimes in the short term, because you may see some unideal results from time to time, you're going to see those pay dividends as we go into the later parts of the season. Anything else you have to say about the A series?
I'm glad we won it. We were kind of starved of series wins for a while. So it was a much needed one, especially with like at home, and the two walk-ups were good vibes. And we have a pretty tough schedule in June, and also actually for the rest of the season, because apparently, according to various metrics, we have the toughest strength of schedule for the remainder of the year. So it's good to pick up any win against any team that's kind of struggling or below 500. You kind of need to take those games because we're facing a lot of good teams over the next few weeks.
It's funny when you think about the losing streak the Rays got on, because I think it really and puts a negative spin on what I actually think was a more positive section of the season than some might think. Over the last, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 series, the Rays won three out of 5. It's just that they got swept in the middle there, and they lost the beginning and the first two of the Royals series. So there has been some success in there. And I think this is what the frustration has been as a fan, is it doesn't feel like we got on a sustained run of success. Like we're playing around 500 baseball right now. We're just kind of hanging around right now. And that can be very frustrating baseball to watch, because you want a winning streak. You want some positive movement to where you're starting to climb the standings a little bit. And we just kind of haven't been getting that right now. It's been more of, let's just hang out where we are until we get, where we want to be from a roster standpoint to make a move. So that's been I think that's been part of the frustration as a fan watching over the past couple of weeks.
I completely agree, and it's starting now. I remember in April we got off to a bit of an underwhelming start in April, and we said, "Hey, we'll give it a few weeks, see where we're at," and then we're still in the same spot in mid-May, and we said we'll give it a couple more weeks. If in June we're still around here, maybe we need to have some conversations. We're in June, we're still hanging around here, and I know we've not been fully healthy. Like Josh Lowe suffered a setback and went back on the IL pretty quick. We don't have Walls still. Obviously, the rotation is what it is, but like this is still just sticky, middle of the road baseball. And we've said series win after series win, this is the turning point. When is the turning point going to be, Zach? And is there going to be a turning point, or are we going to stick around this kind of win a series, lose a series kind of momentum for the rest of the year? Where are you currently at? Are you concerned?
No, and I will tell you why. And it's an exercise that I did over the weekend or over the last week. I looked at the first 54 games of the Rays season. Of those first 54 games, the Rays hit to a W, just from an offensive standpoint. I'm just going to start there and we'll talk about pitching in a second. The Rays hit to a 96 WRC plus over the first third of the season. That doesn't sound very good. It's in the bottom half of MLB, around the 21st in Major League Baseball. Now, that's not good. That's not what the Rays want to be. That's not what we expect to be offensively. And so I thought to myself, have the Rays done this before? Have the Rays played this bad for a whole third of the season? That seems like a long time. And I went back over the last 5 seasons that the Rays have all made the playoffs, by the way. And I was able to find a 54-game stretch in every single season where they played as bad or worse than a 96 WRC plus for a third of the year. Every single season. And every single time, the Rays ended back in the top half or higher of WRC plus, to the point where when you look over the past 5 years, which, by the way, we made the playoffs all of those years, when you look over the past 5 years, the Rays rank tied for fourth in WRC plus in all of MLB, behind only 3 teams with rings in the Dodgers, Braves, and Astros in that time period. So you're in the same air as World Series champions. And by the way, all those teams are consistent contenders. They're not just one-off champions. They're consistent contenders every single year. And the Rays made the playoffs all 5 of those years. So it's been very frustrating to watch the Rays perform the way they have. And the pitching has been bad as well. I think, again, as I've discussed a little bit earlier in the episode, the walks going back down is the first sign things are moving in the right direction. The second sign things moving in the right direction is guys starting to come back off the injured list. Bradley, even though he had a bad start yesterday, is coming back and has been pitching well. He's had one really bad start, but he's been pretty good other than that. Boz is kind of mucking it around in AAA right now. He's going to figure it out and get back up to the Major League level. And then Springs, we'll talk about it a little bit more later with the injuries, he's going to be back eventually as well. So when you see those guys come back off the injured list, that's when you're going to start to see that turn even more so on the pitching side, because you're going to see truly only cream of the crop in that pitching staff. Because right now you've got some guys, as you looked up and down the staff, that you may think, I don't know if that's a guy that I want pitching for me in like a World Series game or a playoff game even. When you get towards the end of June, beginning of July, you're going to look up and down that roster, that pitching roster, and you're going to say, I'm comfortable with every single one of those guys pitching in a postseason game. In the role that they will be pitching in, by the way, because you might still see Alexander on there, but he's not going to be starting. He's going to be in a 1 or 2 inning role, maybe a bulk role when you need him. But that's the caliber of guys you're going to see. And then offensively, it literally statistically makes more sense for the Rays to turn their season around than it would be for them to continue playing this bad. Because statistically, as you look back over the past 5 years, that has been the outcome. They have played bad, and if you look back, sometimes it happened in the middle of the season, sometimes it happened towards the beginning, and sometimes it happened towards the end, by the way. The Rays in 2020, that bad stretch was right at the end of the season, right as we were leading up into the playoffs, and we went to the World Series. So it's happened several times. It's happened every season, and it's happened in several different locations in the schedule, and they've still every single time turned out a top WRC plus season as a team and made the playoffs. So nothing that I have seen so far makes me think that's going to change, because the philosophy of the organization has not changed, and the roster has not changed drastically as far as the talent roster that's available. What has changed is the injuries and guys being taken off that talent roster to provide that value. Once those guys are added back into that talent roster of guys that are available, you're going to start to see the performance increase. And you're very close now. Bilau is getting hot. He hit to a 160, I believe it was a 176 WRC plus over the last week. Siri is starting to turn on a little bit. You'll start to see more of these guys get back to where they need to be. And when J-Lo comes back, you'll have that additional lineup protection. So I do think it is going to turn. I just think we may have to wait a little bit longer, which is unfortunate because it's kind of an uninspiring brand of baseball that we're watching right now. But there is going to be a turning point. I think it's going to be somewhere towards the middle or end of June. We're going to start seeing that turn up as the roster becomes complete as it can be, and we see them moving in the right direction.
I think that those are all excellent points, and I think very astute as well, that it would be more of an anomaly for this current core to continue to be this bad than to improve. It would be weirder for them to stay this bad because, like you said, the past dictates that this is a good core offensively, and they have been, and they've proven it. What I worry about is, I know we're only a third of the way of the season, but I do worry a little bit about the timeline that you have suggested. You said maybe towards the back end of June. That's when, we're probably going to see Low back probably in the next week or two. Springs maybe back end of June, start of July. Walls maybe in a couple of weeks. Where are we going to be by then after facing the Orioles, the Cubs, the Braves? Then, if we continue to play at the rate we are, and we continue to say we're playing like 4 and 6 groups of 10 games for the next 20 games, we could fall further out of the playoff picture. We're 4.5 out as it stands right now, which is not ages away. But let's say the Twins remain pretty good, and let's say the Royals remain pretty good. We could, if we continue to play kind of a 5 and 5, 4 and 6 kind of 10-game pace for the next 20 games, we could fall to 6 or 7 games out of the third wild card spot. If that's the case, not only do we have to make up a lot of ground, that's not what scares me. I think we could go on a run in July, August, September that could make up that amount of games. What worries me is the amount of teams we'll have to climb over in that scenario. As it stands right now, obviously we got the Royals and the Twins kind of battling out for the 5 and 6 seed, but then we got to climb over Boston. We've got to climb over the Tigers. We've got to climb over the Rangers. We're currently tied with the Blue Jays. They might get better. The Astros, I think, are going to get better. We might have to climb over them if we don't pick up soon. That's what scares me, is we're not only currently relying on the team to get better, we're also relying on at least 5 other teams to not play as well as they currently are, which gets me a little anxious when it's currently not in our hands, if that makes sense. What people always say, that old baseball cliche, hey, it's in our hands. All we have to do is win the games that's in front of us. If we don't pick it up soon, it won't be as simple as just win the games that's in front of you. You're going to have to rely on regression from other teams as well, which is where it gets less ideal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. My counter argument to that is your point about it's going to be out of your hands. I'm not 100% sure it's going to be out of our hands, because when you look at the schedule, I think we could see J-Lo back as soon as the Orioles series, potentially. So then you start to see things get back on track. That being the Orioles series at home this coming Friday. You could see him back for that series. So I think we could win that series. Then you get the Cubs at home. That's, they've been good, but you could win that series. Braves on the road is tough. Then you get Twins on the road. By that point, I think J-Lo is going to be reestablished back in the lineup, and you may see, I don't know if Boz will be back by then or not, but you're definitely going to see and Walls might be, but you're definitely going to see Bradley being confident. Efley definitely is going to be back by then. So then you're talking about going to the Twins with a way more completed roster. I feel much better about that. Then you're going to get the Mariners at home, a team you'd also like to be beating. You're going to get them. And then as you go kind of throughout the season, you're obviously playing a lot of teams in division. But even if you go right to the end, we do play the Rangers, by the way, who are in front of us. We play them in July. But if you go to September, you go to the very end of the season, right? 4 games at home against the Twins. That's going to be an important series. You get the Orioles for 3 games. That's going to be an important series. And then you get Boston and Toronto at home for 3 games each towards the end. You also get Detroit for 3 games and Boston for 3 games at the end of the season. So honestly, I actually think there's a really good chance, if we're still in danger at that point, which I don't know if we will be or not, but if we are, it is actually going to kind of be in front of us, I think. I think the teams that we're going to have to be worrying the most about, we're going to play them. We're going to have the chance to influence it a little bit. And maybe not completely, but like you're going to have a chance. So that's why I'm not as worried, is because the teams that are in front of us, we're going to be playing. We play them at critical moments in the season, so where we can really influence the playoff picture. So I do understand what you're saying, and it's not an invalid. It's very valid for sure, because it is a lot of teams to climb over. I'm not sold on Boston 100% long term. I'm not sold on Detroit 100%, but they are very good. We'll have to see. They're very young. Curious to see how they play throughout the season. The Royals are very good for sure. And then it's going to come down to the Twins, I think. And I think I think the games that we have against the Twins are going to be very important. That 4-game set at the end of the year is going to be vital if we're still jockeying. And again, while it's a lot, we're down about 10 games behind the Orioles right now. We got a lot of games against the Orioles left. So while it looks bad right now, it certainly does. It is not impossible to climb back up. The games are in front of us. And I think as we get into even as soon as the next series against the Orioles, this team will be more complete than it is right now. And so I think the turnaround, and I said the middle of June, I even think the turnaround could start sooner than that. Like, I think we could have it. I think this team could have a very nice series against the Orioles at home. Maybe get a series win in a 4-game series, which is tough. But if you get that win in that 4-game series, all of a sudden, I think it's a very different tone, because then you get the Cubs at home, which is a winnable series. And then now all of a sudden, potentially after a 2-game set at the Marlins, which is another winnable series, all of a sudden we could have a very different tone about this team the next time we meet next week. I don't know if we will or not, but I do think there is potential for us to be really moving in the right direction very soon.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. It's one of those where I'm like, we've been convincing ourselves that the turning point has been coming every week, and I'm just like, we need it to come at some point, because if we get to the All-Star break and we're still hanging around 4 games under 500, then you got to have trade deadline discussions about what the move is then. So it's kind of like a crucial month now to kind of show that this team can get on track and can start to make that push. Because if you can't do it by the All-Star break, then you do have to have those difficult conversations about what the Rays do. The Rays are behooved to buy. It's not their favorite thing to do, buying at the deadline. They do it, but it's not their favorite thing to do. And because it is, unfortunately, when you have to buy at the trade deadline, it's expensive, and the Rays don't like to overpay for things if they can help it.
Right.
So unless they're convinced they need the reinforcements to go for a run, they're not going to do it. And if they don't buy, then what are they going to do instead? I don't think they're going to stand pat. They're too explorative, and they're too proactive to stand pat. Even in 2018, where they were not very good, but then made a run towards the end of the year and almost made the playoffs, they were like, we can't necessarily buy. We'll kind of do this middling thing where we kind of not rebuild, but retool for next year, where we take a couple of sideways steps. It could, if we don't hurry up, I feel like some sideways steps are in our future, which is, I think, a frustrating place to be. So I guess what we have to do is kind of wait and see, because like you said, all it takes is a good week.
And I think we could be about to see that happen. And that's baseball. That's kind of what's so frustrating and amazing about it, is it can change that fast, but it feels so slow as well, because it's not like if you're a fan of an NFL team, your fortunes can change in a week, but it's one game that you watch for that to change. This is way different, because you got to watch 6, or I think this week is only, we have 2 days off, which is actually really nice. By the way, that's a side note, just a total side note. They have played a lot of games, and over the last over this week and then now this next week, they're getting a lot of days off, which is really nice. I think it's going to pay some dividends for them too. Getting a day off on Monday and another one on Thursday. I have to wonder if that's going to be a real positive for them to kind of reset a little bit going into that next Orioles series, to kind of bounce back and potentially really attack that Orioles series. So that's a really nice thing.
Definitely.
And they're going to get to stay. They're in Miami for the Marlins series, and then they're going to stay there at home. So they get to stay in Florida and stay local for that time too. So I think that's a real positive too. If you're looking at just getting rested, that's another really good positive.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be rested, which is good because we've got a tough month ahead. So it's good to get those days off and just save the energy, save the pen. Yeah, so well, let's see where we're at. I think for me, the clock is ticking. I think it could all change, but for me, if they're still this kind of sticky team by the end of this month, I'm gonna have to reconsider what I think about this team. I've already reconsidered that whether or not we can do a division. I don't know if we can do a division anymore.
Yeah, I like that's a tough one because it's hard because the Yankees have just played really well. Like the addition of Juan Soto really worked out for him, and the pitching staff has held up without Cole.
Yeah, it's amazing what getting a real outfield can do.
I know, and it's kind of like I kind of can't do anything except for say, all right,
yeah,
like they did, like that's exactly what they should have done, and Rodon's been like whatever, he's been fine, so it's like okay, all right. Yeah. I guess they got to tip your hat to them. They've been good, and so have the Orioles. So winning the division, I mean, who knows? It's not like mathematically impossible. It would be tough for sure. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll table this, and we'll come back to it and see if we can put a good week together somewhere.
Yeah. If you are looking to put a good week together from your wardrobe's perspective, I have a very easy solution for you. Shop.rblrsports.com. You already know 10% off anything you'd want to buy, including that fantastic Bring Back the Devil shirt that Pat is repping right there. 10% off anything you want to get there with promo code FLAPPY, RBLR. Rowdies, Bucks, Lightning, Rays. All the best Tampa Bay sports merch is there at shop.rblrsports.com. 10% off everything there with promo code FLAPPY, FLAPPY. Thank you, everybody who's watching and is watching through to this point in the video. Give us a subscribe if you're still watching us. We appreciate it. Give us a like as well. We really appreciate it. Thanks for sticking with us.
Absolutely. We love talking Rays. We love even when things are a little sticky and a little bit up for grabs. It's still a team that we love to watch. There's so many amazing characters, and we just love talking about the Rays, and we love talking with you guys as well. So be sure to let us know what you think about the Rays season so far as well.
When do you think that they need to turn it around? Are you already changed your mind? Leave us a comment. Drop us something on Twitter or wherever. Let us know what you think. We'd appreciate it.
All right. So it's our favorite time of the week because we get to inject some positivity into our veins. It's time for our bat and arm of the week. We both agree on both our bat and arm of the week this week. So I'll let you take the bat, Zach's bat. Who is the RBLR bat of the week?
This one's not going to be a surprise to anyone who watched Rays baseball this week. It is a guy who was much maligned earlier in the year. They were ready to sit him down. He said, I'm just going to get up and go way, way up. That's Jose Siri. And not only getting up with the glove, but hitting it hard with the bat, hitting to an over 200 WRC plus over the past week, home runs. It's just a fantastic week offensively for Jose Siri. And it is the turnaround we needed to see from him. Getting that injection from the bottom half of the lineup has been awesome. Jose Siri is the bat of the week.
Yeah, he's picked up half a win this week. Half a win above replacement by Fangraphs War just this week.
Right. Yeah.
And there's like 30 weeks in a season, so he's on like a 15 WAR pace right now.
That's great. I mean, listen, you never know.
You never know. You never know. Also, big shout out to Brandon Lau as an honorable mention. Yes. And Isaac. Isaac's just been good all year. He just continues to be good. Let's not talk about Alex Jackson with his minus 100 WRC plus.
Not quite yet. Who is our RBL arm of the week, Pat?
I'm glad you asked. Our RBL arm of the week is one Ryan Pepio, back at it again, back off the IL and proving why he has so much potential. He went 5 2/3, really quality outing for him. And he continues to show like the great stuff, the strikeout numbers that he is capable of, the dominance he can have over hitters when he has got his command in check. And it has been getting more and more consistent as the year has went on. He's a super exciting prospect and key part of this rotation now, I would say. I would even elevate him above prospect status. And the fact that we've managed to, Tyler Glasnow has been incredible over in the Dodgers, but we knew that was going to happen. knowing that we've got Ryan Pepio for the next like 6 years is a perfect compensation for that, because he will put up similar numbers, I think, over the next 5 years to what Glasnow will do. And he's going to be a key part for the middle to top of our rotation for years to come. And he just did an excellent job last time out.
Yeah. And I mean, when you think about the way this rotation is going to be constructed when everybody's healthy, having another guy of his caliber at the top of this rotation, I mean, when you look at 2025, what this rotation is going to look like, it's going to be pure disgust coming out of the hands of Rays pitchers. It's going to be tough for guys to get a spot. Like, Littell's probably been the best pitcher so far this season. He's going to be fighting for his life. So is, I mean, Pepio is going to be too, because McClanahan, we've almost forgotten about Shane McClanahan, but like he's coming back. Springs, Rasmussen, he might be transitioning to a bulk role. We'll see. But then Pepio, Littell, Eflin, maybe. Like there are so many guys competing for a spot. And then that's not even talking about guys like Mason Montgomery, who's still working his way up. So it is going to be tough sledding to get a spot in the rotation. But that being said, Ryan Pepio is going to earn a spot. He was excellent this last week. He's continuing to be excellent. He's getting better at being more consistent throughout his starts and having consistency start to start, which is something we talk about wanting to see from him. He's been better at that this season, these last couple of weeks, and he was great this week. And we hope to kind of see the consistency continue now that he's back off the IL.
Yeah, Fangraphs loves this guy because his FIP and XFIP this week were both insane. A 121 FIP and a 269 XFIP, which is both elite numbers, especially over a full start as well. So big up to Pepio. Littell was also good this week for what it was.
Yes, Littell was good as well. He got blemished with the 1-3-run home run, which probably shouldn't have even existed because it was an error, and I don't even think those runs should be charged to him. But I digress.
And one more little shout out. Can I give one more little shout out?
Give a little shout out.
Kevin Kelly. He was in 4 games this week. He went
Kevin Kelly.
Didn't give up a single run in 4 outings over 4 2/3 innings. So good for you, Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, he's been good. Clevenger's also been good consistently too. He's up there. I think he's like 3rd over the last week in F4 on the team. Really good. I have been told that scores work for MLB. So maybe it's just somebody at the MLB league offices who hates Zach Littell. Who knows? Or maybe just hates the Rays or hates the Rays pitching staff. Who knows? I don't know. But I have been told that they do not work for the Rays. It is for MLB. So just in case, just to put a little bow on that. Speaking of putting a little bow on things, starting to put a little bow on the show this week. Injuries. Josh Lowe is starting to rehab down in Durham. Boz is continuing his rehab. Springs had to come out the first inning of his rehab start earlier last week. However, the injury that he suffered, they don't think to be related to the arm itself. It was said to be shoulder, which I think everybody just wanted to jump off a bridge when they read that. And it turns out that it's actually just another muscle that's shoulder adjacent, but actually a shoulder. They believe he'll be able to rehab it and get a shot and be okay in a couple days to continue. So that's good. And then Taylor Walls is also rehabbing down in Durham as well and moving his way back up towards MLB. Yeah.
So did you mention Poche? He's been assigned to Durham. He's been assigned to Durham today, so he could be back very soon as well.
That's another guy. Well, I mentioned. I can't remember if I mentioned it earlier or not, but another guy that we just haven't talked about that much that's been missing from this bullpen. One of your top left-handed options outside of Clevenger has just been absent for the last month plus. That affects your bullpen. Getting him back is going to be a real positive for this team. So that's just another way this team's going to keep getting better.
Absolutely. The only bad news on the injury front is Junior Caminero is hurt.
Yeah.
He's got a quad strain. Apparently it's grade 2, which is like slightly worse than the lowest. It's like a slightly, it's because Josh Lowe had a grade 1 oblique strain. I don't know how muscle grades work, but like the bigger the grade, the more severe it is. It's not great. He's going to be shut down for 4 to 6 weeks. So we won't see him till what I would imagine until like close to the All-Star break now.
Yeah.
And that's in AAA, which is a shame because he was hitting really well in Durham and was kind of knocking on the door for a call-up for quite some time. And now we probably won't see him till in the majors, especially until around the trade deadline time, which, there may be moves that facilitate that at the trade deadline.
Who knows?
So, yeah, unfortunately, Junior's done for the month. Hopefully he can come back in July and pick up where he left off.
Yeah, we hope so. Again, it kind of goes back to roster crunch being a societal construct, because we were starting to talk about that of like, what are we going to do when he comes back up? Oh, he's going to be injured for a little bit, so I guess we don't have to worry about it. It always seems to work out that way.
It always does. The baseball gods are a curious bunch, but they always make it work out in some way,
They do.
for better or worse.
They do. Well, any other thoughts on the week of baseball that was?
I've only got one other thing that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's a quick one, but we've been tabling this discussion for a while, and I feel like we need to address it. The catching situation.
The catching situation, yeah.
Alex Jackson coming into today's game, batting 029 with a 140 OPS.
He has had a hit today.
He has had a hit today. Congrats, Alex Jackson. He has been... I feel like it's close to what I would do. Like, it's getting close to what I would do with the bat. If you take away the hit he got today, he has had one hit in about 40 plate appearances.
Yeah, it's not great.
I don't think I could get a hit in 40 plate appearances, but he's only one hit better than me. So,
yeah,
it's not been good, and we're long past the point now of the amount of time Rene Pinto has to stay in the minors after being optioned, and he's not been called back up, and he's been hitting okay in the minors. It's been about kind of slightly below average of what you'd want from Rene Pinto, I think, but like, he's been okay. Meanwhile, Alex Jackson has been non-existent. And I've been like, going, why is this happening? I've been thinking about it for weeks. I'm like, why is Alex Jackson not only on the roster, he's getting like a bajillion starts, and Rene Pinto's sitting in Durham, despite us talking all off-season that Rene Pinto was the guy that they value. The Rays organization constantly put all their chips behind Pinto. They were like, we don't even need a backup. Rene Pinto's our guy, all the way until the day before the season opened and we trade for Rotvet. They were like, we don't care about a backup. We love Rene Pinto so much that we don't care. Maybe it'll be Alex Jackson, but who knows? Like that's how much they were hyping up Rene Pinto. He was going to catch 100 games. And they optioned him 6 weeks into the season and aren't in a hurry to call him back up. What's going on? So I've done some digging. Apparently, it's swing decision related. I've been hearing is what I've been told. They're not happy with Rene Pinto's swing decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess his walk rate is 8.2%, which is not particularly high. And his strikeout rate is 36.7%, which is quite high this year. And last year, it was even worse. He had a 1.9 walk percentage and a 32% strikeout percentage. So he doesn't walk. He hates walking. So he doesn't lay off stuff. So I can see why that is a cause for concern. You need to take your walks more. Sure. Even though he'd shown a 7% increase from 2023 to 2024 in his walk percentage. So I don't know if I fully buy that idea. Lots of catching stats, despite what everyone says about how much they love Rene Pinto's defense. All the kind of admittedly shaky catching defensive stats that I could possibly find point to Rene Pinto not doing that well defensively. His blocks above average, which I know is, again, a shaky stat, but he's currently in the 19th percentile in 2024. He was really low in 2023 as well in his blocking. The eye test, I think, correlates with that he can't block particularly well. His pop time is below average as well. And that's been the case in 2024 and 2023. He's had a below average pop. Oh, sorry. No, that's a lie. He had a good pop time last year, but his framing has been like around average, just above average. And I'm wondering, is there like something defensively that they want him to work on? As opposed, because Alex Jackson actually rates quite well as a defender. In fact, if you look at the like catcher framing run statistic on Baseball Savant this year, Alex Jackson rates quite strongly in terms of catcher framing runs. He has one, but in very few, short sample size, and he actually has the highest caught strike percentage. Pitchers throw strikes to Alex Jackson 54.3% of the time, which is more than any other catcher the Rays saw both this year or last year. So they like how he gets pitchers to come over the plate. He's able to do that, whether it's via his game calling or the way he frames. They like that. They like pitches to throw strikes. He is good at getting pitches to throw strikes. It's better than Rotvet. It's better than Pinto. It was better than Bethancourt or Mejia. I don't know. Is that something? I mean, it's really hard to kind of put any tangible qualities on game calling because it's immeasurable, really, because we don't know what's being called necessarily. But Rene Pinto this year, in a small sample size, had a 44.7% strike rate thrown to him, and a kind of even out catcher framing run, 0. So is there something there? Maybe it's more defensive than offensive, because I don't think the Rays really care how their catchers hit, as evidenced by Alex Jackson. So why would they send him down if it's for offensive purposes, but yet they'll have Alex Jackson be non-existent as a hitter? It has to be defensive, right?
It could be, but it also could just speak to, it could really just speak to what that the Rays understand that you're going to get, generally speaking, unless you have Adley Rutschman on your team, you're going to get meh offensive production from your catcher. And so you'd rather give him the time to refine whatever offensive output he's going to be able to give you to where you're really happy with it. And you're going to say, take your time to get to where you're happy there and where the team's happy within there, and give him some time to work on whatever he may need to defensively. Because while those numbers, I've seen the same numbers too, that show that he looks bad, I'm hesitant to put any stock in a sample size that small, only 19 games at the major league level. It's a very small sample size. But at the same time, I trust the Rays to make that decision. I would say that I'm definitely in the camp that I'm a little confused, for sure. I also, there's been some discussion that Alex Jackson may have had something in his contract where he had to come up and play a certain amount of innings at a certain point in his contract to stay with the Rays. So they've done that. It's also possible they're showing off what he can do from a game calling perspective. If you want to, maybe they want to trade him, maybe they, whatever. And that, if that's a really good thing, and he does have good numbers in his career in the minors. He has hit well. He sits above a 130 WRC plus in the minors for the last 2 years. So there are some good things there from a catcher. So you do wonder if maybe they were hoping that maybe they could show Alex Jackson that he would perform well, and maybe you could trade him while you let Pinto work on some things. Maybe it hasn't worked out the way they want it to. It's definitely a bit of an odd one. Ebach spoke a little bit earlier this week. One of the Rays player development spoke a little bit earlier on both on Pinto and just a little bit on Alex Jackson, and they said that they wanted him to work on his swing decisions a little bit, and so that's what we get. That's all we have to go on. But it does still seem like he's their guy. So while it's a little bit confusing, it does still seem like that's what the Rays are doing. So I just kind of have to go with it, at least for now. It's definitely weird. It's definitely
it feels
odd.
like a swing and a miss from the front office, because either they were dishonest with us about their evaluation of Pinto, where they said, he's the guy. Oh, wait, 19 games in, he sucks so bad, we got to send him to the minors. And we didn't build a backup around him that we could depend on, which I think is really strange, because either they rated him really highly so much that they didn't care what the backup was, or they thought he had stuff to work on, therefore they should have built depth. They had to pick a lane, and they didn't. And I think it's hurting the team from at least an offensive standpoint when we are running out of games to kind of start getting good, and they're not putting their best lineup out there.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd one. I think it's another one of these things we're just going to have to kind of wait and see. And maybe we'll get some more clarity towards the middle of the season. Maybe there'll be some more questions asked about it as the season goes on to people like Cash, and maybe to Neander towards the trade deadline. Maybe we'll hear some things. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more clarity as the season goes on. But it definitely is, it bears continuing to watch, as we have been, and continuing to maybe dig and see what we can find, because it definitely has been odd.
Yeah, I think it's just the lack of transparency and the lack of clarity on it all that's been so frustrating.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't want to end on a negative note, because the Rays are rallying in the 8th inning. They're just behind by 1 run against the Orioles. So maybe we can sneak a dub, get out of there, get out of cursed Camden, and then start picking it up from here.
And Siri has actually just hit a double to put us up a run. So we are now winning.
Yeah,
So,
that's how we
stuff.
end.
So
That's how we end.
That's ending on a positive note. So that's the positive note. Hopefully the Rays pull this one out. Thank you guys for pulling it out and watching with us and staying along as we're talking Rays baseball. We appreciate all of you. Drop us a subscribe, drop us a like if you've enjoyed the show so far, to come back week after week. We appreciate you guys. We've got a lot more Rays baseball to talk about as the season goes on. It's gonna be good stuff. This is gonna be a fun season one way or another. It's kind of been crazy to start, but we're gonna have good stuff. So thank you everyone for joining us once again for the RBLR Rays podcast. We appreciate all of you sticking around and watching us through to the end. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, we appreciate you. The vibes will only get better from here. And as always, raise up.
Raise up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.